you just missed it. We had a bunch of elk in here like literally 40 minutes ago.
Oh,
a whole bunch right up on the back
man.
window. We get elk, we got salmon, we got fresh clams, freshwater clams down here on the beach when it's low. So I mean, this whole, you see all the berry bushes, it's just chock full of food. This is the ridge that we think they're traveling along the most, that they come down. And then this right here is just a patch of woods between 101 and the lake that provide perfect cover, so they don't ever have to go down the highway or be seen. And then they just think they just cross through the back here, and that's why we're getting activity here on the property. My name is Matthew Parrish, and I'm from East Texas, and we moved here to Washington because of Sasquatch. In the beginning, I was just doing it kind of as a side hobby, going around the lake here, collecting stories, and then we started to have experiences on our own property. So in the beginning, we came to Washington. We would come up here for vacation, and I would take my family to these Bigfoot hotspots. I'm trying to look for the best viable habitat for Sasquatch, and then we ended up on Lake Crescent on the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula. And while we were up there, we stayed up there for 4 days, and nothing really happened. But on the last night, it was actually my birthday, and it was your classic, typical Pacific Northwest, dreary, misty, rainy weather. And we were laying down in our cabin at around 11 o'clock at night, and it's dead silent, and we could hear from the backside of the ridge behind us what sounded like the Ohio call. It was just this long, drawn-out howl that came off the mountain, and we both kind of looked at one another and sat up, and we're like, wow, there's no way we're hearing this right now. And so I knew we had to come back. I was hooked from then on. I wanted to know more. I had to know more. And so we had the opportunity in 2021 to move here to Washington State. And so we, it wasn't even a thought, we just jumped on it. And so we had a fire sale on all of our stuff and loaded up the car, and here we are. And so on the weekends, on my days off, I would go around and try to talk to people. And in the beginning, people were, kind of hesitant to talk about their stories, but that's really how all this kind of started. And then more and more people started opening up here on Lake Quinalt about their situations and what they've had happen. And it was only a matter of time before we started experiencing stuff here on our property as well. We first lived in this house when we first moved to Washington, and around 12 to 1 o'clock in the summertime, we would smell this mild, musky smell, nothing overpowering, nothing real strong, just a gamey smell. We'd come in through this bedroom window that we had right here, or the bathroom window, and we had a box fan up in there, and it would just suck in everything. So it would just fill up the whole house, and we didn't really know what that was. We thought maybe a bear at first, and it wasn't until later on when we moved out of this house and we moved into the house next door right here where we started to really experience some activity. And it wouldn't be until my parents actually came for a visit, the second week we were in this house, is when we would realize what we were dealing with, that we weren't dealing with a bear, we were actually dealing with a Sasquatch. The house is where it happened. Yeah, we followed the tracks all the way around. It came right up. They like to come right up through the woods here, and then there's a game trail right in here. This is where I give them, this is where I put all the food, because it's where they come. And this is actually the rock that was used that night. It's still here. We kept it, and they haven't taken it. When my parents came to visit that first night, we had cooked a bunch of seafood gumbo. My stepmom did. Us being from the South, my wife hadn't had any kind of Cajun food or anything like that in a little bit, so she was really craving that. And so she made all this. We had all the windows open. This was the end of June. we just spent all evening out on the porch having a good time, probably till about 11 or 12 at night. And around midnight, we decided to call it quits and go inside and lay down for the evening. And so we let my parents have our bedroom, since it had a window unit in there and they could be more comfortable, you know. Me and my wife actually took my daughter's room right here, and at that time she didn't have a window unit. It was just we had to leave it open to be comfortable. And so around 2 in the morning, my wife wakes me up and she goes, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "No, I don't hear," you know. She goes, "There's something out there banging." And I said, you know, I get kind of flustered. I'm, you know, half asleep, half awake. And I was like, "Go back to sleep. You know, nothing's trying to get in the house. You know, I'm just there's all kinds of stuff. It's a rainforest full of wildlife. You know, you're going to hear stuff." And so I start to lay back down, and I heard a very sharp, clear whistle. But this was not like, it was short. It didn't like drag out. It was just a sharp, clear, short burst of a whistle. And it didn't sound like any bird. It sounded more like something a person would make, you know, kind of like at a construction site, but different, if that makes any sense. So now I'm awake. Something's got my attention, and I'm listening, and I'm trying to, you know, and I can't hear anything. Well, this is the end of June, and all the grass is pretty much dead. You know, it's got that stiffness to it, so it's got a little bit of a crunch when you walk on it. And I started hearing what sounded like someone, like a person, walking away from the window outside the house here, back towards the road. So now I'm definitely wide awake, alert, you know, and I'm just laying there. I'm listening, you know, to this, and I'm, you know, trying to see if I can hear any more. I don't hear any more. I laid there probably another 45 minutes before falling back to sleep. So the next morning I get up, and my stepmom and dad are out on the porch here, and they are just, you know, I could tell something's different about them. You know, my dad's been in law enforcement for 38 years now, and he's actually the chief of police back home. So not really a whole much really kind of bothers him sometimes. And not that this necessarily bothered him, but it put a different look on his face that morning than what I'm used to seeing. And so I asked him, I said, "How did y'all sleep?" And he said, let's talk about that. And he said, "Well, first of all, how was your night?" And so I was like, "It was fine." And then I remembered, I said, "You know, my wife, she woke me up," and I told him what had happened. And he said, okay. He said, and he looked over at my stepmom, and he said, that's around the same time, you know, that we had our experience. And I said, "What happened to y'all?" And he said, "Something walked up to your window unit, your air conditioning, and just started banging on it aggressively." And that was it. And I was like, I said, "Well, have you been over there yet? Have you been over to look at?" He said, "No, we haven't." He said, "We just got up a little bit ago." And so I said, "Well, let's walk over there." So we get off the porch and we come around the corner of the house. And the first thing we noticed was in the grass, like I said, it was dead, but there was these big impressions in the grass, and they were about 17 inches in length, and they were about 3 to 3.5 feet apart. And they just came right up from the road, right up along the side of the house here, to this bedroom window here that they were in. And we found this at the window unit, and this is what was used to bang on it aggressively. And like I said, it's not a big rock, it's just a, you know, small $50 size, but we've kept it. So anyways, that happened, and we saw that, and we followed the tracks around the back side of the house. And when we got over to the if you want, we can walk over there. We followed the tracks. They continued on around the back side of the house here and all the way over here to where our pantry is. And that's where my stepmom had been, you know, this is our kitchen window. She had been cooking the shrimp and all that, the good stuff, that good Cajun food. when we got over here to where the tracks continued, we noticed on the window up here there was a big, large impression that looked like a forearm maybe, and right below it is the garbage where all those shrimp peelings have been. And so, you know, that blew us away. Seeing that, it was like, wow, you know, okay, here's another piece of the puzzle here. We're definitely not dealing with a bear or, you know, elk or a person, you know, playing a prank. There's too much going on. The tracks continued and they went right down here back onto the road, and from there it disappeared. I don't know where it went. I'm assuming it probably went back up into the forest, because this is a dead-end road here. But in the summertime, there's nobody, there's not really a lot of people here. There's a few. We have some Airbnbs, but it's mostly quiet. And we don't have any children. I'm the only one in the neighborhood with children. So I think that by us being out here on this porch all night and laughing and cutting and carrying up, that maybe got us some attention from these things. So the next thing that we had happen after that, my parents, they stayed with us for a week. Nothing else exciting happened. It was pretty quiet. They go back to Texas, and 2 or 3 nights after they left, I think it was 3 nights, I got up and I came to this kitchen. And when we first moved into this house had been like a party house, you know. It was trashed out. It was in some really rough shape. This window was actually busted out at the time, this kitchen window here. And so we were waiting on a replacement, and I had a piece of cardboard just covering up the whole window. But it was just the bottom piece there that was busted out. So I come and I'm into the kitchen, and I'm getting a glass of water. It's 10 o'clock at night, and the cardboard started to flex inward, and I could hear the tape that I had, you know, even the adhesive, you could hear it peeling, making that sticky sound. And so I'm just watching this, and I'm still not thinking Bigfoot. That's not on my brain right now. Like, what the hell, you know? I'm thinking we just cooked, you know, I'm still trying to process it all. And really, I was thinking, how fast can I get to my gun? You know, if whatever is on the other side decides to come in the house. And around that time, my daughter, she comes running into the kitchen. And she was 7 years old then. She goes, "I know you're trying to sneak on me." And I said, "What?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "You're outside my bedroom window making noises." And I said, "No." I said, "I'm not outside your bedroom." Well, I looked back, and when she ran into the kitchen, whatever was on the other side of this window had stopped. It's gone now. Or at least it's not pressing on the window anymore. I said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, I'm in my boxers." I said, "I'm not outside. It's 10 o'clock at night." She goes, "No, you're out there." She said, "You're making like zombie sounds and sounding like an Asian person or something, like a gurgled Asian zombie." And I said, "No," I said, I'm not out there doing that to you." And that's when it dawned on me that whatever was going on, there was 2 of these things, one at her bedroom window and one at the same time here at the kitchen window, messing with that cardboard that I had put up. Next day we go out and we put up more floodlights and stuff like that around the house. And I told her, me and my wife told her, we said, "Hey, you know, if these things ever come back, don't open up the window. Don't try to communicate back with them. You know, you come and let us know immediately if that ever happens again." And since then, we've heard what sounds like chatter in the forest over here on a few occasions. My girls have heard it more than I have. I've only heard it once. So right in here somewhere, we've heard chatter. I can't really, what I heard, you know, a lot of people, they call it samurai talk, or, you know, they say it sounds kind of Asian. I've listened to the Quinalt people here and how they talk, and other Pacific tribes. I don't get the feeling that it's Asian talk. I feel like maybe they're mimicking native language, and that's just my own personal opinion based off of what I've heard. We were laying in bed one night, me and my wife, and we could hear what sounded like, the only thing that I can describe, and this sounds crazy, sounded like two drunk guys coming out of a bar. Like, just, you could tell they were having a good time, you know, but it was different. You couldn't make out what they were saying, and then as they got closer, they were getting quieter. And then it wasn't until they got right back here behind the house, they just went dead silent. Whatever it was that was passing through. And we laid there, we were just listening like, is this happening, you know? We started gifting, we started placing food items out for them to come and take. They don't really care too much for the apples that I put out. I don't know if it's just the brand that I'm buying. I hear that a lot of people have luck with apples. The only thing that we've really had success with is plums and like fresh corn on the cob and shrimp. We put shrimp out, it's always gone. I can't say that a Sasquatch took shrimp. I mean, anything could take the shrimp. But we put the plums out, and I always set 10 out at a time. And every time that I put the plums out, we always are left 4. They never, you know, take all of them. They always leave 4 behind. And one theory of that, someone told me, they said maybe they're leaving 4 behind because there's 4 of you in the house. Maybe 1 for each of you. And so I don't know, you know, I just find that interesting that they would take all of them but that. The other thing with the corn is they will husk all the corn right here in front of the window and eat it or whatever they do. But we'll come out the next day and there'll be corn husk everywhere. Not shredded, not ripped, not torn apart. It's just husked. And so, and they always take all the corn. They never leave us any. So those are really the only things that we've had success with. And that's if they're even in the area. 97% of the time, they don't touch it. I did leave a little corn husk doll that was made by a native woman that I know here. That's a friend of mine. And I left it out, and that came up missing. They took that, or something took that. So I thought that was interesting. We never did find it. We've had other things on the property come up missing, just odd stuff, you know, that you wouldn't think that they would take. And we've never been gifted anything back in return. You know, you hear a lot about that. Oh, they left me this, or they left. We never had anything gifted back in return other than the plums. They'll take all the plums, but they always leave 4. And so I find that intriguing. Just about a month and a half ago, I was coming out here to gift and to put out some food. And as I came out here, when I hit the corner of the house right here, and there's a tree right there, a big one. There was a set of red eyes when my headlamp hit, that reflected, and then it just kind of ducked back behind the tree and disappeared. And so I went ahead and I hurried up and I put my stuff out, and I thought, well, the next night when I come out, I'm going to be prepared. So I had my phone out, ready to go. And as I came around the corner here of the house, right back here in the woods, this big old tree right here just fell over. That one right there. I don't know if you can see it that good, but I heard it fall over. There was no wind. It wasn't storming. There was nothing going on. So I walked over here in the corner, and I got my headlamp out, and I'm looking, I'm scanning, I'm listening, and I don't hear anything. So then I start getting in my bag, and I started pulling my goodies out for them, and I started putting them up in the headlamp so they could see, you know, if they were there. I didn't know, but you know, and I'm showing them. I said, okay, I got an orange for you. You know, I talked to them if they're, you know, because I don't know if they're there or not. It's not so much or that they would even understand. It's just to show my demeanor. You know, I'm not a threat. I'm not here to harm you. You know, that's it. You know, I'm open to trying a lot of different things. You know, when it comes to this subject, I fall in the realm that they're flesh and blood. I think they're just passing through. I don't think that they're visiting this property. I don't think that there's anything special about me or my family. I think that they're just, you know, they're passing through and they get curious and they stop by and they go, oh, okay, you know, what are the Texans up to tonight? You know, But yeah, so I'm showing them and I'm telling them, hey, this is what I got for you. I come back over here and I'm putting my items out on the table, and I can hear just something breaking the brush, and it's big, whatever it is, and it's coming up fast right here behind me. And so I spin around and my headlamp hits it, and I just see two eyes looking back at me, and they kind of duck down, and I was like, oh, hi, how are you? You know, I just started talking, and then I said some expletives under my breath, and because I was kind of shaking at the same time, and it would pop up and it would look at me, and it would have these red eyes that would reflect. It was definitely reflecting from the headlamp. It wasn't like it was, you know, I've heard people say they generate their own. This was reflecting red, and something over here started getting upset. I believe, because I started hearing a bunch of brush just pop and snap and get ripped up. And this thing that I had in the headlamp would look over in that direction and then look back at me. And so as this is going on, one of the things that I noticed about it was it would be red, but as it would start to turn, it would be like almost kind of an orangish amber color. And then right when the light would hit the side of the eye, as it was looking over here, it would be a yellowish color. And then when it would come back, it would be red again. So I thought that was really odd that was happening. And then it raised up a little bit further, and this goes on for about 5 minutes. And finally I decided, okay, I need to leave, you know, I need to get back inside. And so I start to go back into the house, and it's dead silent. I don't hear anything. And when I got to the corner of the house, I looked back one last time to see if it was following, and there was a set of red eyes again right up here on the tree. How it closed that distance in that short amount of time, I don't know, you know, that without me hearing it. A friend of mine told me, who also does Bigfoot research, said that it's possible there might have been a third one that it was on that tree the whole time, and that's what you saw, and that's why you didn't hear anything. I don't know, but it was too close for my comfort. It was probably only, you know, it's like maybe 40 feet right there. So I hightailed it on back inside the house, and that was that night. That was pretty eventful for me, and I actually captured it all on video. Are you? Come on, a little closer. There we go. Come on back. So when you go back up over this little mountain here, there's a drop off on the other side. And when I went back in there and I did the measurement, and I actually found a tree that was split in half, and there was a footprint. So I lined up right there, and then when I compared with the video and I did my recreation, we took a piece of reflective tape and raised it up. Everything matched up perfect with the video, and whatever is in the video, we estimate to be around 7.5 feet tall due to this drop off right here. So, and there's no other like real trees like right in that area. It's just a kind of a brushy, scrubby area. There's trees all around, but there's just a little patch that's open there. Yeah, this is actually, it's kind of mushy. You can, well, that's new. There's a branch right there, but this is actually, you go right up in between those two trees, and that's actually a trail that they use. We found footprints right here. So not only do they come out, but this trail breaks around. It goes around a tree and it comes out on the road. And then there's one that enters here, and then it comes back and it goes all the way back behind those bushes, back up there into those cedar trees. And then it wraps around and comes back out on the far end of the property there. And we've actually had a neighbor tell us that she's seen them early in the morning hours, like 2 or 3 o'clock, coming and going from the woods there. And so that, I thought that was really interesting when I talked to her and I found out that. She's like, yeah, I've seen them coming out of your off your property, crossing the road and heading on down like they're headed towards the river. My wife, she wasn't really a believer per se in Sasquatch. She supported me and supported my hobby and stuff and my research, but it wasn't until we started having our own experiences here on the property. And what really kind of sealed the deal for her was when she heard them. Since then, I would leave early in the morning at 3 o'clock to go to work, and she, I would get a text from her or something and say, hey, are you still around? And, no, I'm not, because she would hear what sounded like people talking. My daughters heard them a couple times, but it always seems to be like when I'm not around, like once I've left for the day, then they'll start hearing some chatter.
Are you scared of them?
No, in the beginning, yes, I was scared of them. When this was happening with my house and my family, it was, you don't know what you're dealing with. You hear these things being the friendly forest giants. You hear them being the aggressive, child kidnappers. So you don't really know what you're dealing with. But this has been going on now for over 4 years. And it seems like a lot longer when you talk to the neighbors. It's been going on for a couple decades that this seems to be some kind of route for them. So I'm not scared now, because I think there's kind of this understanding that this is like our area, and they just kind of peek their head in from time to time to see what we're doing, and then they go on about their business. I think that if they definitely wanted to do harm, they could. They could learn our routine. It seems like they would learn when I would leave the house, because that's when they would come around and my girls would hear them in the forest and stuff. So, I'm not scared now. In the beginning, yes. As I told you, I do a lot of research, and I talk to other people, but since we know that we have stuff going on here on the property, I've been trying to research what we have happening right here at the house. And so I've actually found some game trails back up in here around the house that I believe they're using, because I found tracks, and I'll send you those pictures and stuff. But there's other things that we found back there that led me to believe that they are using these game trails. So I put up game cameras back there. I had some up there, and I've taken them down since then. But about 2 months ago, I went up there to check one of my game cameras on one of the game trails, and I heard 2 whacks from right behind the game camera somewhere. And so I just kind of stood there, and I'm listening, and I'm trying to scan. Well, as I'm listening and looking, I can hear something coming up from behind, approaching from behind me, off to my left though. And it would just take a couple of steps, and then it would stop. And then it would take a couple of steps, and then it would stop. Instead of turning around and facing it, I just kind of, kept looking at, what was in front of me, trying to see if I could see anything. When I felt like it was close enough, I actually turned around, but there was nothing there. And so I'm standing there, I'm listening. Well, then I hear this thing start backing up, going deeper into the bush now that I'm facing it. So I started to follow it, and I followed it right up here all the way back almost to Highway 101, and I started finding tracks as I'm following this thing. And it would go just a little bit. It would walk a little bit, and then it would stop. And I would stop and I would listen. And just to go up to 101, which isn't very far from here, it took us almost 4 hours, because it was like a cat and mouse game. It would walk, and then I would walk. It would walk, and but I would find these tracks, 15 and a half inch tracks going up. Well, when it got close to 101, I could tell we were close because I could hear the traffic, and then I would hear just this whack, 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 whack. It was just, repeated. So I stopped, and I'm thinking, okay, this thing, whatever it is, does not want to cross 101. And it's not happy that I'm here. So I backed up against a big cedar tree, and I kind of just squatted down, and I'm listening, and I can hear this thing start coming. This time it's not like the cat and mouse anymore. It's coming down the hillside towards me. And as I'm listening to this, it stops when it's, I don't know how close it was, it maybe 50 yards, but it stops, and then I hear it like moving away, parallel, and then it starts to continue, and I can hear this chickmunk just going nuts, off in the distance, where it was continuing back down. I was like, okay, so it got close to me, and then it veered away, and then it continued back down the hillside, and then I lost it. I couldn't follow it anymore. I don't think that they know what cameras are. I think there's something about a camera that triggers them. I have my own thoughts and theories about that. But there's, something about it repels them. I reached out I used to be in the criminal justice system back in Texas before moving up here. And so I reached out to some of my friends, and I asked one of my sergeants back there, I said, how do we train the dogs to detect cell phones inside the prison system? How do they know what a cell phone is and not hit on other electrical devices? And inside most cameras, he said, well, it's the camera actually what they're looking for. They teach them to go after a chemical called niobium oxide that's inside the camera, in these smartphones and your game cameras and stuff like that. And that's what the dogs are hitting on when they find the phones in the prison system. And so I think maybe something like that might be, maybe there's a chemical compound inside cameras or something that these things can smell, and maybe it's just something that really turns them off, and they, that's, like I said, there's no, it's just a theory.
When we were at Donkey Creek a few years ago, I was doing a recon to make sure that this area could accommodate the amount of people that we were coming with, and I was there with a friend. And I was asking the ranger about Sasquatch eventually, and he was like, yeah, I've only been here a couple years, but we do get reports. And he goes, the north end of Lake Quinalt is where all the bow hunters talk about the Sasquatch reports.
Yeah, and that's where we hear a lot of like vocals, but I've gotten a lot of reports myself from people that live over there, of them crossing the road. They're all road crossings, the reports that I've gotten. I haven't heard of anything coming up to someone's house like here, other than right around here, my neighbors that have their own experiences like we do. But last year we had this guy that was kind of shady floating around the area, just a drifter. And so anytime somebody new pops up in the community, everyone kind of, is on alert, and it's like, hey, look out, I seen this guy running around. A lot of times people get dropped off and they miss the bus that connects them from Aberdeen, and the connecting bus to Forks right here in Amanda Park. So they might get stuck for a couple of days. But there was a guy, he was drifting around, and I went up to the store here, and the lady, she said, hey, I have something to tell you. She said, I know you're into Sasquatch. And she said, the other night when she was going home, that she had seen what she thought was this guy walking down the road. And so she was like, oh, hell no, he's not coming down towards our house. I'm going to call him out, So she kind of pulls over in this little pull-off spot, and she gets out of her car and she pulls her flashlight out because she wanted to keep some distance from him, and she puts the flashlight right on him. She said the first thing that she noticed that was odd was he was all dark. And I was like, black, gray, like what, what do you mean by dark? She said he's just dark, same solid color. And she said, and then she realized when she got out of the car how huge he was. And she yelled at him, and it turned and it looked at her. And that's when she realized this was not that guy. She didn't know what it was. And it darted across the road to her side and into the forest and up the hillside there, up the side of the mountain. And she got back in her car and she sped on up to her house, which was just, a quarter mile from there. And she went inside and locked all her doors. So my neighbor here has also been experiencing stuff as well. She has them come up to her houses also. When all this first started going on, I actually went down there to talk to her, and I asked her, do you have anybody messing around your property at night? And she said, like the campers. And I said, the campers? I said, there's people in these woods that are homeless or something? And she goes, and she kind of stood there for a minute, and she goes, what do you know about like forest people? And so me doing the research that I do and stuff, I knew exactly what she was getting at. And so I just cut to the chase. I said, you're talking about Bigfoot, right? Sasquatch. And she goes, yeah. She said, what do you know about them? And I said, I know that they're around here, they're in the Pacific Northwest. And she goes, yeah. She goes, they come through here. She said about 2 or 3 of them, a couple times off and on throughout the year, pass through. And she's actually had stuff like tap on her windows late at night. She'd let her dog out one night, and she said that her dog was going nuts, but it wasn't scared. You hear a lot of stories where the dog is scared. This dog was more aggressive. He was barking at something. She called him back in, and she said that these 2 things approached her bathroom window, which is right off of her bedroom, her master bathroom. And she said that one just was kind of like very dark, deep, gurgled gibberish sounding, she said, aggressive. And it was like clawing, like picking at the window screen. And so she was actually scared. She actually called the police to come out here. And they came out here and they looked around her property and everything. And, about 45 minutes later after they left, it comes back again. But this time there's like another one, she said, and it sounded more like panicked, she couldn't make out what they were saying. It just seemed like one was pissed off at her and one wanted the one that was pissed off to leave. That's the feeling that was her perception of it. And so she calls the police again, and they come back out here, and I got a video of that, of him walking around out there on our security camera. This goes on. He tells her, he said, hey, I can't keep coming back out here. I don't know what you got going on. And so she says, well, that's fine. So she gets in her truck and she comes down here to where her mother lives, and she spends the night with her mother. here on Lake Quinalt, on the backside of it, you have Graves Creek back there in the back. And since we've been here, it's a 411 hotspot. I don't know if there's a connection with 411 and Sasquatch, but it does seem to be interesting that where there are 411 cases, you will find a lot of Sasquatch activity as well. Our first year that we were here, we had Dwayne Miles. He went missing. I believe he was from up around Beaver, Washington. He came down here, and it was just supposed to go up in there to do some foraging, and that was October 16th of 2021. He went missing. They searched for him. They never found anything. They found his pickup truck parked out there. The following year, we had Laura McEnany. They had Laura, forgive me, but she went missing also back up in there, and that was November 1st that she was reported missing. What was interesting about both of those cases is that Laura, she was a criminal psychologist, I believe, but she was also an avid outdoors hiker. She'd done the John Mauer Trail. She prepped, she studied. She knew her stuff. She wasn't unfamiliar with the outdoors, and then she just vanished. The same with Dwayne Miles. He grew up here, knew the area well, avid outdoorsman, and he came up missing. Before them, there's a couple of others that date back further back, but it's always on the backside of the lake there in the Graves Creek area where the people come up missing. So I find that interesting.